influence children. And just the fact that if somebody can not take the hope away from a child and let them know that they can be all that they can be, regardless of what they look like, regardless of where they came from. So I think taking away those stereotypes in the school district, in schools, is very important.
Culture affects what we do every single day. It affects how we learn. It affects how we view school. And so for me, just to bring my own fairly narrow experience won't serve the school best. And so I'm constantly seeking to not only learn about academics or about the craft of leadership, but maybe even more importantly, how to serve people as individuals better. And certainly the area of cultural competency does that.
I think that we make statements, we work for solutions, but we really don't want to know how it affects people. Some of the most common questions that we worked on during this series, this training series, was learning how to ask simple questions like, tell me more about what you meant by. What angered you about what happened? What hurt you? What's familiar about this? And then finally, what do you need or want? And I think that what folks found when they were going through this experience was, oh my gosh, why didn't they tell me? Or more importantly, why didn't I know?
I was before quick to just try to solve the problems if a parent came in. I'm giving them the answers. I used to give them the answers, and now I'm sitting and I'm listening.
I did gain some skills. In fact, I brought my little card from the training, and it has 9 healthy ways to communicate, and I keep that by my phone. And when I first initiate a conversation with a parent that's very upset, they usually call first, and then I try to have a conversation, and I use many of these skills that are listed right there by my phone, and it's more of a listening, and then I am able to ask questions and repeat back and understand what their true concerns are.
Using specific questions to allow that other person to talk more, and not just to talk more, just blah, 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 but really go deep into that person's feelings and share why that person is like that and what was maybe the past that allowed her to be who she is or who he is right now.
I do believe also, having taught for about 25 years, is that I didn't miraculously figure out what diversity issues were. I actually went into my kids' neighborhoods. I asked them questions about their lives. I had lunch with them. I ate out in the lunch yard. And after school, I walked them home, or I drove them home. I got into their homes. And I think that perhaps what we found out during this series is that we all walked each other home. I want you to hear that in a very symbolic sense, is that we walked each other home for the first time in this series. And in that walking each other home, we discovered not that we had the same home, but rather what we discovered is that there were things about each other's homes that we never knew. And those things affected our lives. Maybe even why we became principals and teachers and being hall guards and working on a staff. And that story and all the experiences that we learned from those stories shaped who we are. And I think that if we want to begin where people are, to make the most use of them, we're going to have to find out those stories. Because I think that what became really clear in doing this workshop is how many people in the room couldn't be fully themselves. And I think when people can't be fully themselves, they're actually walking around imitating somebody else. And I think that until we begin to make the most use of the people around us, that we really will never know what it's like to have a multicultural society.
So for me, the next step would be to continue to seek to understand from the student's perspective how their culture impacts their learning or prevents their learning, so that I can help knock down some of those barriers that might prevent their success.
Be curious, want to know. For me, that is what a good leader is. It is not simply somebody who leads people, but who leads people to believe that they too are the future leaders, and that we are simply, as I said today in one of the workshops, learn how to be a bridge to help others become leaders.
It really makes me think about the employees that I work with. I have a very diverse population. A Palestinian, Argentinian, Mexican, Marshallese, Russian, probably others, and somebody from Spain. So I think working with all those different cultures, I always stop and ask myself, are the issues and challenges that we sometimes face, are they linked to cultural issues, or are they just personality issues? So I think it always helps ourselves to stop and step back a bit and reflect on the person as a whole and how that influences their decisions and their actions.
In our country, we have such a broad range of people and cultures that I don't think you can ever feel at any time you can be so safe that you can be glib or cavalier about the kinds of things that we say and how we listen to people.
I also learned that even though I like to talk a lot, I can also be an active listener. And I think that that's the key ingredient in respecting and accepting other people.
Is when cultural competency becomes part of their everyday communications and relationships. That it's not just a thing to celebrate, but that it actually is a part of the very fabric of who we are and how we relate and who we are with other people. It is, in fact, about how to build community and to value each person every day and in every way.